What on earth, a lot of people might be saying, has that got to do with whether or not you've got a digital currency? Tell us why it does.
Well, that's because it could be the most serious incursion on the public's privacy probably that we've ever seen. Because the ability with a centralized digital currency that a government has is potentially, and it really depends on how it's designed and what the legal environment is like, but the potential opens for the government to watch everything that you spend. And to when it's watching everything that you spend, it can also control what you spend. And then the question becomes not just who's watching what I do with my money, or not even who's controlling what I do with my money, who actually owns my money. And as you said, there is precedent for this. We've seen financial censorship before. And, similar schemes, authoritarian schemes around the world, such as the Chinese social credit system, overlap a kind of moral code and punishments with the financial system.
Yeah, this social credit system. I have to say, I'm with Candice, though. I mean, about 5-10 years ago, I would have been like, oh, brilliant. I mean, God, it's such a pain having cash. If everything was just done digitally, it'd be great. And when we moved into the lockdown period, I remember having to get my daughter a bank card when she was 14, which I felt quite uncomfortable about because she just couldn't. Loads of shops she went to wouldn't accept cash. And a lot of, let's face it, the banking system, the authorities quite happy to have people using cards because it means they're less sort of cash in hand operations, means they make sure they get their tax. A lot of people running businesses at the till, they would rather everything was done on the cards because, again, you can't have cash going missing. And so there are a lot of people for whom it's very much, it's easier, it's more efficient, it works very well. But as you say, the two really big warning signs about this have been what's happened in the West, in terms of control, how money has been used to control people's freedom of speech, but also critically in China and the social credit system. When I've talked to people about, this can be used to control what people do and what people say, people look at me like I'm insane. I'm thinking, it's happening in China. They go, yeah, right. Conspiracy theories on Twitter. It is literally happening right now, isn't it? In China, people who have been critical of the government or don't say or do the right things, don't get enough social credits, they are stopped from spending money. They are unable to, for instance, buy certain items, unable to use a vending machine, to buy a train ticket, to buy an airplane ticket. I mean, to even things like apply for jobs. But they are able to completely control somebody by the fact that their money is completely controlled.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, actually, it's happened in the West as well. It happened in Canada to the truckers.
Oh, yeah.
So whether it's the government or whether it's private platforms like PayPal that have also been involved for a long time, in 2010, they deplatformed WikiLeaks. So there is real precedent for this. And in fact, it's not just a possibility, it's an inevitability because this is a regulated area. So the government will say, well, we have a responsibility to make sure that the law, whatever it is at that time, is being upheld. And then there might be other things like social responsibility that come in. So, it doesn't have to be, there's a big scale of how badly wrong it could go. Yeah. But there's a massive possibility that it could go really badly wrong.
Yeah, but the idea has always been, but we don't have Xi Jinping in charge, so of course it won't happen to us. But as you mentioned, Justin Trudeau a couple of times, the Canadian Prime Minister, who's, hailed as this sort of liberal hero, of course, when he wasn't locking down his people. But his treatment of the truckers, now, again, this is something that I'm amazed by how many people who listen, perhaps only watch the BBC, have no idea about. They do not know that this liberal sort of hero, Mr. Handsome, what a lovely guy, that Justin Trudeau basically ordered the Canadian banks to withhold funds, not just from the people, the truckers who were saying, we don't believe we should be required to have medical treatment to go about our jobs, but they were protesting peacefully, legitimately protesting against this draconian policy. But people who were just sending money to crowdfunding sources for them. A cafe owner had their entire cafe's bank, their business account stopped by a Canadian bank, the government's instruction in Canada, because they had sent sort of $20 or something to help these truckers. Now, that is unbelievably sinister that happened from a government.